Emily Spence. I am the Digital Resource and Curriculum Manager here at the Old North. So I'm responsible for helping to create resources for teachers and students and lifelong learners that live on the Old North's website, so that people not only in Boston but all around the country and hopefully the world can learn about our history here. The Old North was made famous by Paul Revere, his signal lanterns on the night of April the 18th in 1775. The Sons of Liberty here in Boston needed a way to quickly signal the movement of the British soldiers out to Concord to see some gunpowder that was there. And so Paul Revere came up with the idea of using the Old North steeple, putting 2 lanterns up there to signal to everyone that the British were moving by rowing across the Charles River. And so that set off a whole network of riders that led to the battles of Lexington and Concord, the first battles of the American Revolution. One of the ironies of this church is that the steeple that has become this symbol of freedom it was built using funds from the sale of logwood, which was grown by enslaved labor. And I think that's one of the many examples of how this church has a connection to enslaved labor, whether it be that congregants owned slaves, were participating in the trafficking of slaves, or that enslaved people worshiped here too. So I think that it just shows that it's one of the many ways that we, like other sites around New England, have this complicated connection. And though we may be a symbol of freedom, for many in the past it wasn't a place of freedom. I think that that's one of the difficult but interesting things about history, that it isn't just black and white or good and bad, but that it's, history, like the Old North, has many things that we can celebrate and many things that we need to reflect upon, and that's what makes history interesting. That's what makes us human and makes us able to relate to people in the past, is that they did both good things and bad things. We need to understand both of those in order to have a really true understanding of our American identity. One thing that I always, when teaching my students about even just like enslavement in the past and slave labor and how just prevalent that was in American history, and talking about sort of the complicatedness of Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, but he also owned slaves. I take a lot of heart in the fact that my students could not wrap their minds around the fact that someone in the past could own a human being and think that was okay. And I think that shows how much progress we've made. And it helps by studying those people in the past, we can, I think, understand today what our own values are. That people in the past, yes, they valued freedom or they valued equality, but for us today that definition has changed, and we can kind of appreciate how it's changed, why it's changed, and maybe how it needs to continue to change in the future. I think there's something powerful about visiting a site like the Old North, that you can learn about the stories of Paul Revere, the stories of the congregants, or even the stories of enslaved people, but it's not until you stand in this space and realize that you're standing in the same choir loft where Paul Revere rung bells when he was 15, or standing in the same pews, sitting in the same pews as enslaved people, that their stories really come alive and you're able to connect to them. And so I think it's really important for us to be preserving these spaces so that we can come and visit them and learn about the people here.